Trump is furious, and the reason may be bigger than anyone realizes. The enemy he thought he could crush keeps surviving, winning, and turning every attack into another political embarrassment. But now, whispers of a secret Trump plot are raising one explosive question. How far is he willing to go to finally destroy the opponent he cannot defeat? Before we reveal what may be happening behind closed doors, subscribe right now, because this channel exposes the political stories others soften, hide, or ignore. If you want the truth before the headlines are cleaned up, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Do it now, because the next detail changes everything, and once Trump's alleged plan is exposed, the entire battle could look completely different.
Holy shit, Trump is losing his mind and is now completely unhinged and incoherent. From stating that Japan is launching missiles and calling them an Islamic Republic, to being less coherent than my buddy's 3-year-old toddler while talking to world leaders. Here's everything that you need to know. So first and foremost, you heard me right. Yesterday, while speaking at the NATO summit, Trump stated that Japan is launching missiles and labeled them an Islamic Republic. I don't even know what to make of this clip. This is our president. Take a look for yourself.
I told the story yesterday, we had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. They were shot at the aircraft carrier.
Additionally, while at this NATO summit, President Trump was sitting down with Zelensky from Ukraine, and he called him Putin. You can't make this shit up. Take a look.
A lot of energy. Do you have a question for President Putin, please? Do you have a question for President Putin?
Trump's mental faculties are unreliable. They simply can't be trusted because he has lost his mind. He would be much better off in a retirement home than the Oval Office. Here's the last clip that I want to show you. This was Trump speaking at a G7 summit in front of world leaders a couple weeks ago in mid-June. He was talking about gas prices, and frankly, he made no sense. I would genuinely expect better articulation out of a 4th grader. Take a look.
Oil is dropping like it has never dropped before at levels that went in numbers down $7, down $8. They've never seen anything like that.
That's all for now. I pray for the day that our president is smarter than the average middle schooler. Make sure to hit that follow button to stay in the loop.
You know, it feels like a goddamn miracle because it looks like against all odds they figured it out. Someone in the Trump administration, or perhaps the last chemical engineer at NASA on her way out the door, borrowed the last operational brain cell from Donald Trump, combined it with a skin cell stuck to a hair strand found in one of the brushes behind a bottle in Pete Hegseth's changing room. And by some miracle of science, 88 miles an hour with a strike of lightning to the flux capacitor at midnight, those two cells previously thought to be for display use only, came together like Trump and Bubba, sparked miraculously, and created enough electrical current to make the dormant half-watt idea light bulb over Donald Trump's head flicker just a little bit. And in this moment, Donald Trump understood something that the rest of us figured out a long time ago. Now, like always, he's too smug to admit when he's learned something, so we have to figure it out from his actions. And he just took the action of requiring DC police officers to accompany National Guard troops on their patrol, since the National Guard is not the police and can't enforce domestic law, meaning they were being treated like props on a TV set, which actually tracks for a reality TV president. This is something that Sarah Beckstrom apparently already knew, according to an interview with her ex-boyfriend.
And they gave them no rights to do anything. She couldn't detain nobody. She couldn't stop them from doing wrong. They told them to call the cops. She's like, it's pointless. We can't do anything.
And now Donald Trump finally understands this too, as his political stunt was exposed in the worst possible way with the completely unwarranted, unnecessary loss of human life. The worst part of all of this is that he was told this could happen in 2 documents authored by the DC National Guard leadership, made public because of the lawsuit against the Trump administration. They were warned back in August that the Make DC Safe and Beautiful mission presented an opportunity for criminals. In that same month, all the way back on August 28th, a member of the DC National Guard requested additional DC police officers in the areas where the National Guard would be present. They had the request to do exactly what they are doing now back in August, but they waited until after a tragedy to do it, which honestly explains Donald Trump's increasingly unhinged crash outs. He took this risk with American lives to insult blue cities and try to instigate conflict with the left, because he was told months ago that crime was the strongest issue for Republicans. So he set the stage for a conflict with radical left lunatics in blue cities because he believed it would save his legacy. But now it's becoming increasingly clear the suspect was not motivated by politics, and he was not from the left. Perhaps the most cruel reality of all is that the attacker wouldn't be here if it weren't for Trump, and his victims wouldn't have been there if it weren't for Trump. Now, in response, Trump wants more National Guard troops and more police officers, committing even more lives to the charade. While reasonable people ask, instead of sending police officers to accompany National Guard troops on their patrols, can't the police officers just do the patrols by themselves, like police officers do? Then all those young men and women in the National Guard, who are technically only there to protect government buildings, could go back to their homes, families, and careers just in time for the holidays, where they won't be left vulnerable with one hand tied behind their back by a president who doesn't have the vision to anticipate expected consequences and who is too stubborn to own them when they blow up in his face.
President Trump just announced if he is taken out by Iran, he has left instructions to bomb them at levels never seen before.
You know what a race car driver is? 1/10 of 1%. A bull rider, that looks pretty dangerous. It's 1/10 of 1%. No, it's 5.2% is you don't make it. You should have told me, you're an excellent reporter. You should have told me that years ago. Maybe I wouldn't have run. It's a very dangerous profession. No, I'm number one on the kill list for Iran. They're lovely people. I'm number one. So I don't know. I can't tell you that, but I don't really care because I'm doing my job and I'm doing it, I hope, better than anybody's ever done it, because we have a country that's hot and really, really successful. But I mention it only because it's on the list. I mean, it came out. There was another list came out yesterday, and I'm number one on. I like being number one on TikTok better, but I'm number one on the list for killing.
Okay guys, pretty crazy news. Trump has just left instructions in case he is assassinated by Iran. But what makes this interesting is that this is not even the first time he's spoken about this subject in the past few days. So 2 days ago at the NATO summit, he said that he's number one on the kill list for Iran and that he might be gone. The next day, the Wall Street Journal, they report that Israel had recently shared intelligence with the US indicating that Iran had developed a fresh new assassination plot targeting Trump. And then today, he told the New York Post that he's left instructions to literally bomb the hell out of Iran at levels they've never seen before if they somehow succeed in killing him. And then he joked, "I hope you'll miss me." And how do we know that Iran actually wants him dead? Well, they didn't beat around the bush at all. This was literally one of the signs they held up in the last few days at the burial site of Iran's late supreme leader, and this one as well. So, yeah, pretty wild stuff.
If you've not been paying attention to what JD Vance said last night, you need to wake the fuck up right now. We are living in one of the most incredibly dangerous times in our country's history since World War II. JD Vance went out there after the shooting in Minneapolis, where a mom was shot in the face 3 fucking times by ICE agents. What he said was, before her body even went cold, was that she was a domestic terrorist. What he said, what DHS said, was that she was a radical leftist, without there even being an investigation yet. That is what the vice tyrant of the United States of America is saying. And on top of that, when he was asked about what consequences this person could face, he said none, because they have absolute immunity.
You have a federal law enforcement official engaging in federal law enforcement action. That's a federal issue. That guy is protected by absolute immunity. He was doing his job.
That is incredibly fucking dangerous. It means that ICE agents can go out there and shoot you and face 0 consequences at all. We cannot let this continue. They are creating a secret police force in the form of ICE. This is not anymore about immigration. This is about the consolidation of power. That is what is happening. And until the American people wake up to what is going on, our country will continue down this path.
Donald Trump started a war with Iran, and he then lost the war. The war was supposedly for regime change, right? The regime in Iran is now the same theocratic regime they had before, just with a younger, more radical mullah in charge now. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps is in a position with regard to the government that is as strong, if not stronger, than it was before. Iran's nuclear program, that was another supposed reason for the war, that is still very much in place. Iran's stockpiles of enriched uranium, still very much in place. Trump said he wanted regime change. He said he wanted to end their nuclear program. He wanted to seize their stockpiles of enriched uranium. He did none of these things. He said he wanted to decimate Iran's military capability. Indeed, he says he did so, but somehow Iran maintained enough military capability to keep the Strait of Hormuz closed all this time. And as recently as this past week, they were able to shoot down an American Apache helicopter. Bottom line, it does just seem to be Donald Trump surrendering on behalf of the American government, agreeing to cease all of our military operations there, potentially agreeing to pay Iran in the form of lifting previous sanctions or unfreezing previously frozen Iranian assets. And in exchange for us paying them, we get a return to most of the conditions that existed before the war, except things are now worse for us and better for them. That's basically the definition of losing a war. Thanks to Donald Trump starting and then losing this war, Iran is going to be richer and more influential. Its ruling regime is definitely more radical and more entrenched than ever. It can be infinitely more confident in its nuclear ambitions now that they know that the most powerful country and the most powerful military in the world couldn't do anything to end those ambitions, even at the cost of a war. I mean, really, the only difference for Iran now, materially, is that they may be able to start charging fees for ships that want to transit the Strait of Hormuz, which is something they were never able to do before. But hey, to the victor go the spoils, right? Meanwhile, American families are poorer thanks to the spike in energy prices and related inflation that Trump's war caused that may not even level out anytime soon thanks to the damage. That's not even considering the economic impact of what we spent in terms of military materiel and the American lives lost. And then there's the fact that the US government has been humiliated on the world stage, reducing itself to precisely one international ally, one, Israel. Even as the president himself cannot even speak anymore about Israel's leader without using four-letter words, even in public. Remember when Donald Trump said the only way this war would end would be unconditional surrender? He maybe should have specified which country he meant by that. He also said the war would result in a great civilization being destroyed. Remember that? And again, maybe he should have been more specific as to what he meant by that. But I'm just saying, this is what he had happening at the White House, the actual White House, as he got ready to sign the supposed agreement with Iran, crying uncle and agreeing that he lost the war he himself started. Motorcycle circus at the White House.
Oh, breaking news. I literally have to lay down. You pardon a admitted felon, a Chinese crypto billionaire. You pardon him, President Trump. He then sets your sons up with a crypto business. Disgusting, obviously corrupt. The MAGA minions in office who took an oath say nothing. Now you give the UAE, shady, by the way, shady, okay, a preferred trade deal that includes a provision that you're going to give a favorable review to applications that involve semiconductors, okay, the key aspect of the AI economy that we already gave away to Taiwan and we need to reclaim, and now you're given access to the UAE, which includes a firm that you're going to give preferential treatment to that just happened to have used your son's stablecoin to make a $1 billion plus investment in another company. The same company owned by the Chinese felon you pardoned, who set your sons up with the business, which makes that stablecoin, which the UA used to invest in them. It even pisses off my dogs. This is so corrupt. It is so corrupt. How is it not corrupt? How is this in any way consistent with draining the swamp? How?
So the ceasefire with Iran, that was never really a ceasefire, now appears to really be over. We have ended trade, all trade with Spain, and Japan is now apparently an Islamic republic. If all or any of that is news to you, then you've been fortunate enough to have missed Donald Trump's performance on the world stage at this week's NATO summit, where in a series of bizarre press conferences, Donald Trump ran the gamut of sounding merely uninformed to downright addled and crazy. Take a listen to some of the highlights.
Is the ceasefire done? Is the MOU dead?
It's a very interesting question. To me, I think it's over. I don't want to deal with them anymore. They're scum. I told this story yesterday. We had 111 missiles shot by the Islamic Republic of Japan. They were shot at the aircraft. JC, POC. What a terrible deal. I call it the Obama nuclear waste deal. I don't want anything to do with Spain. Cut off all trade with Spain, please, including visits. Okay, we don't want anything to do. You know who's number one on TikTok? I am. I'm number one on TikTok. You have a question for President Putin, please? Do you have a question for President Putin? Not Zelensky. Yeah, what would you like to ask him? Because I'm going to ask him that question.
He's not sitting next to President Putin. I don't know what tic-tac is. The Islamic Republic of Japan came out of his mouth. Marco Rubio is going to have to start standing next to him and translating. But unsurprisingly, Donald Trump's incomprehensible, unhinged, embarrassing, uninformed, me display there and his approach to geopolitics has had an effect. It appears to have finally exasperated and exhausted European leaders' patience. On that, the New York Times reports this, quote, a major motif of this year's NATO summit has to do with European leaders deciding whether it's politically advantageous to at last dispense with the niceties and fight back against Trump, as the Spanish and Italian leaders have started to do. The time when all European heads of state were playing nice with the mercurial American president is decidedly over.